Welcome to another special video edition of Bill on Bankruptcy. As that name might indicate, I am Bill Rochelle, ABI's editor-at-large. For the next few minutes, we're going to be talking with Jim Van Horn, a partner in the Washington, D.C. and Baltimore offices of McGuire Woods. Jim got both his MBA and JD from the University of Pittsburgh.
Correct.
You're a Pittsburgh native, I guess, right?
Pennsylvania native, but I spent a number of years in Pittsburgh.
State College. You grew up in State College.
I grew up in State College, went to Penn State down the street, which we often refer to as 13th grade, since everyone went on to, most people from my high school went on to Penn State. And then I moved to Pittsburgh for school and to work for a number of years before moving down to Maryland.
You know, congratulations on turning that football team around very quickly.
Oh, thank you. I never thought that would happen in my lifetime.
Neither
so thank
did
you.
I.
I know. Or anyone else.
Well, that just shows you. You've got great alums at that university, so it's, in that sense, not at all surprising. Listen, we are here to talk about bankruptcy, and thank goodness there is at least one really sick segment of the economy that's keeping bankruptcy professionals busy, and of course I'm talking about retail. However, everybody talks about retail. So, Jim, I want to talk with you about something else. I want to talk about the downstream effects of retail bankruptcies and financial difficulties, and in particular, malls. A, B, and C malls, shopping malls, not strip malls, but real honest-to-God malls. So tell me, what is it like these days being an owner of an A mall? Are you pulling your hair out?
You're pulling your hair out if you're the owner of any type of mall right now, whether Class A, B, or C. But what we're seeing is that with Class A mall space, which again are the nicest malls. Yeah. I mean, the way that the market is segmented is there's the nicest malls, by the name implies, are referred to as Class A space typically, and then you've got the middle of the road, which is usually referred to as B space, and then of course the lower end malls, which everyone can recognize, are C space. Yeah. What developers are doing, because of all the external forces and the disruptions that are hitting all retailers, which even though we're not talking about retailing per se, but with online shopping and like the statistics over what just happened on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, the billions of dollars and the exponential percentage increase that Americans are spending online year and year, which everyone knows about obviously, is affecting all segments of retail, but particularly malls. And what Class A mall developers are doing that we're seeing a lot of is really doubling down on their Class A space and really
When you say doubling down, what do you mean?
Sure. So right now, which everyone does, it's easy to price comparison shop online with your phone, make purchases on your iPad or your phone, and okay, everybody knows about that. But what malls can do and what certain stores can do is provide that experience beyond just purchasing something. So
you mean repurposing to some extent?
Repurposing the space, because the old days, a mall was just a mall with a bunch of stores. It was a very simple business model. People would come in for the sole purpose of buying something. Yeah. Well, that's not the way of the world anymore. People still do that, but that's not, things have to change and evolve. So mall owners need to come up with, and are coming up with, other ways to bring people into their malls in order to get a fighting chance to have them buy something while they're there.
Such as?
Such as, again, we're talking about Class A space here for the most part here, is got to have free Wi-Fi everywhere. The nicer spaces, there's a whole host of things that we see. There's wine tastings, lectures, there's increased play areas for kids. Comedy routine. I mean, there's just all sorts of things, clubs being hosted, civic organizations, meeting, and having a purpose, to come. Anything that can give the consumer that experience that they cannot get online is what certain developers are having some fair amount of success with right now. But again, it's at the, there's a Columbus Commons, there was a downtown in Columbus, this is a typical story in the industry over a success story where it was, an element of the population started hanging out there that, involved the police a lot. It was very crime-ridden. It just was falling down. Finally, it was just completely redone, totally massive repurposing. Now there's concerts and events and everything. It still has shopping, but it's a completely different business model because it provides people with that experience. And if we all think about the malls that
So somebody took a mall that was in trouble and put a lot of money into it?
I don't know exactly how much money they put into it, but they certainly put a significant amount in, that it's now a very much of a super success story on that. But if we think about the malls that we all like to go to, some of us and a lot of us still go just to purchase something, but think about what other reason is there to go to a mall versus any other type of single sort of strip mall, as you referenced, or online. It's that, what is the experience? And like, for example, we're most familiar with Mall of America, in Minnesota. What that has going for it is that it's the largest, it's the biggest. That's the experience that they sell and brand, is that, and they still have lines out the door and cars, jammed up trying to get into that place because it's that experience of knowing that like everything is there, which, that's just one angle to use. Another angle might be, like I said, wine tastings or anything in the world to bring the experience, to the consumer in order to bring them in. But again, it's at the detriment of the B and C space, which are frankly more and more just not being focused on. And a lot of times those malls are just being turned back over to the lenders for a number of different reasons, because it's not worthwhile to dump any more money into them, because that's not the wave of the future.
You mean to say that repurposing is not a theory that's going to work with the B and C malls?
I don't think it is. No. I mean, someone can always make money doing something. And as I said, most of the space, when it's done, is handed back over to lenders and typically traditional institutional banks who don't do this work at all. But this is not what they do.
So if a bank takes it back, what are they going to do with it?
Well, they need to sell it. They need to monetize it or liquidate it somehow. So there's obviously I'm sure going to be some deals by some pretty smart guys and gals who can find the right space at the right location at the right price point and get I'm sure a phenomenal deal if they have this idea for their own repurposing or turning it into something else. Or it gets very fact specific over zoning and location and things like that over what's possible. But I don't think that's going to be the norm by any stretch. I think that's a minority of the cases.
So I wonder whether some C malls in their parking lots are going to turn into urban farms or something like that.
I think anything's
or
possible.
Housing maybe.
Or housing. I mean, because they're not going to be used as malls anymore. I mean, the vast majority of them are just not. That's just not what's going to happen.
Well, years ago, and I'm talking, 20 years ago, folks were talking about how the U.S. had several times more retail square footage per person, per consumer, than any other country on earth.
Still the case, even more so probably.
And so I wonder, Jim, do you think the chickens are finally coming home to roost?
Without question, certainly, at least with the B and C space, and I think to some degree the A space as well, certainly, there's just too much space. And it's, that was a business model that worked very well for quite a long time, because obviously people make rational investment decisions, usually, to invest and create all this space. But the world's changed, as we all know, with online shopping and how easy it is to, there was, again, billions of dollars spent more this year than the previous year, which is like 10-20% more than the previous year, on Amazon and online shopping and stuff. Amazon got half the Black Friday sales, alone.
By the way,
so it's so easy.
How did Black Friday and Cyber Monday turn out this year?
So both were record-setting once again, which every year is a record-setting year for online shopping. Cyber Monday, there was almost $7 billion spent by American consumers on Cyber Monday online, which was a 17% increase over 2016.
Goodness gracious.
Same thing with Black Friday online, which again, Amazon took half of that business, which, that's a whole other issue with Amazon and, Amazon Prime and everything. We could spend our whole time just talking about Amazon on that. But that is obviously the wave of the future, and that's not going away for a long time. That's the way of the world right now. So, and to your point is, chickens most likely are coming home to roost over this excess space that is not needed anymore.
Wow. Boy, I'm glad I don't own retail space. Listen, let me ask you this, Jim.
Yeah.
Is there any big smart money that is chasing B and C malls either as equity owners or investors in the debt?
Not that I see. No. I mean, there's some, but no, that is not, it's not, I don't see that. And very few people I speak with see that as well. I mean, there's always a little bit of activity, but that's, again, it's the focusing in on getting in on the deals on the Class A space.
Well, you know what that sounds to me like is an opportunity for local folks, because local folks have a hard time competing with the big people.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe if somebody understands their local economy, the local consumer, and the local real estate market, maybe that's an opportunity.
I think it's clearly an opportunity, but I think it also comes back to another angle of talking about the experience. You know, a local experience, or what can that space provide the locals that either a big shiny mall cannot, or that online cannot. What can they come up with? And that's not my line of work. I'm a bankruptcy lawyer, and I find this stuff fascinating. But I'm sure there's clearly people with that type of expertise who can think of those things, and it comes up. Most things come down to a great idea, and coming up with what's going to work in this locale. So
yeah, well, maybe that's what will happen, because mom and pop stores, if they have a clever idea, can work on a local level in one area but not in another. And maybe that's what's going to happen with B and C space.
There should be some great deals to be had if somebody has some good ideas along those lines.
Well, or otherwise, it sounds like, as we said, we're going to have suburban farmland.
Quite possibly, that's
what
right.
Used to be a shopping mall. Wouldn't that be a turnabout?
That's true. The other thing that is for bankruptcy lawyers and people in the industry that we're really focusing on is the amount of the mortgages that hold these are typically called commercial-backed mortgage securities. The amount of this debt that's coming on the market over the next 3 years is like over $60 billion a year, every year for the next 3 years. That balloons to over $120 billion coming due.
Oh, goodness.
In 2025. So over the last few years, the can's been kicked down the road like there has been in a lot of other industries, because financing is so cheap, literally free to get financing. But all it's going to take is interest rates to go up, or some other event that causes money not to be as readily available. And there is going to be a sea change over what we're seeing in all levels of malls, Class A, B, and C, or anything, because the amount of that debt coming due is more than staggering, that you can't even think about. So, and it's, I think, more likely than not that something will go wrong, not just because I'm a bankruptcy lawyer, but it's very unlikely that things are going to be nice and smooth.
You have a point, because we have had 10 years of a growing economy.
Yes.
And that's basically unprecedented.
Yeah.
So another hiccup is going to be a real mess.
Yeah.
Well, Jim Van Horn, I thank you very much for your time. This has been a pleasure getting my nose under the tent and learning about what's going on with A, B, and C malls. Like I said, I'm awful glad I don't own any stock.
Well, I'm very happy to be here, so thank you. Yes.
Or mall owners. Thanks a lot, Jim.
Thanks, Bill. Take care.